So we are in the in-ground garden today, planting out some more crops. And I really want to focus on the question of the best time to plant out a garden, because this question comes up a lot. You know, gardeners will come to me at different times of the year and they say, you know, hey, I just moved into a house and we'd really like to put a garden in. And it might be like July, or maybe is just like the other day, a gentleman reached out to me and his wife was in the hospital for a couple months and just got out of the hospital. And Jerry, if you're watching, I hope your wife's doing really well. She had a trip and fall accident and she broke her hip. And so she was in the hospital for a little while. And they had just gotten out and they wanted to plant out a garden. And he said, do you think it's too late? So I told Jerry, I think you could. You got to be kind of careful. But as long as you're careful, I think you'd be just fine. And he wrote to me and he said, you know, I really appreciate the hope and the optimism that you give me, because I would have thought it was too late. And so that's really what I want to talk about today. I want to talk about that because I think there's a lot of gardeners that are maybe in Jerry's position or in the position of several people that have written to me that have gotten new homes and have moved and want to put gardens in. There is never a wrong time to put a garden in. There's just not a ideal, you know, it might be less than ideal, but it's not wrong, if that makes sense. For instance, I'm planting kale right now, and I just planted cabbage right now. I've got some basil. The basil will be just fine. The kale and the cabbage, they have some inherent risks. And what I want to talk to you about is, you know, timing your garden out and understanding the inherent risks that come with planting out a garden late. There's no problem with planting out a garden late as long as you have enough days to maturity. See this kale here? This kale matures in about 65 days. Now you can be harvesting kale from it just about any time because it's leaves. You can harvest leaves right now. I mean, but it's not mature yet. And so the thing is that with 65 days, I have plenty enough time from now in early July until my first frost in October to plant this crop out. Another prime example would be tomatoes. So we just planted out tomatoes. We have tomatoes planted over here. And the amount of people that said, oh my gosh, look, that's so late to plant out tomatoes. That's crazy. They're just little seedlings. Are they going to produce? I say, oh yeah, they'll produce. It'll be a little bit late, but they'll produce. It'll be totally fine. Every year we plant out a fall harvest of tomatoes. Usually we plant out some determinate Romas, some cherry tomatoes, some early maturing stuff because it's early maturing. And we plant those out knowing that we're going to have a fall harvest. It's intentionally a fall harvest of tomatoes. And the amount of people that think I'm crazy is a lot. A lot of people just say, oh my gosh, I could never. And as long as you know and understand the risks associated, you're fine. You're totally fine. There are some additional care tips you may want to take when planting out a late garden, such as heat and rainfall. So obviously it's hot. Not going to beat around the bush. It's hot. Today it's like 80 degrees. This kale does not like 80 degrees. It's a cool weather crop. Cabbage, same thing. So the heat is going to lead to some stress. How do we relieve stress? Well, we want to make sure that there's a lot of fertilizer, good amounts of nitrogen to keep the plants growing. We also want to make sure that they're well watered. Watering the soil will make sure that the soil stays cool, the roots stay cool, and the plants will stay less stressed. We also could use something like shade cloth. We've talked about shade cloth. We just mentioned shade cloth not too long ago. And shade cloth could be used. We could drape shade cloth over top of these to keep them cool and essentially reduce the sun's strength on the plants. We could drape shade cloth over it and they'd be fine. 30% shade cloth, no problem at all. We also could mulch. As these are growing and filling out, they're going to need some type of protection on the soil to keep the soil from overheating. And so we might take some pine shavings, we might take some pine needles or grass clippings or straw, throw it on some mulch down here. Because typically what we do is we plant close together like I am, and in the early season, it'd give them enough time before the soil gets hot to fill out, and then they would naturally just cover the soil. It would suppress weeds, it would keep moisture in the soil, and it would shade the soil to keep it cooler throughout the day. But because we're planting right now, we don't have that time. Time's not on our side. And so just taking some extra steps to making sure that we can combat the heat is important. Likewise, it's obviously not the rainy season. At least, well, last week we got like 5 inches of rain, but it's not normally that rainy this time of year here in Michigan. We start to get a little drier. And it's so important that if you want to ensure these plants continue to grow and continue to thrive, you just want to water a little more frequently. Keep an eye on it. As long as you keep them stress-free, as long as you make sure that you water them frequently, they've got good fertile soil. By the end of summer, you won't notice a difference. In fact, in a few weeks after they get rid of this transplant shock and they start growing, it might only take 2 or 3 weeks for you to barely notice a difference. Prime example is our raised bed garden. Check it out. So mind you, everything I'm gonna show you was planted out just 4 weeks ago, like this bed of kale here. This bed of kale was the same size as what I just put in ground 4 weeks ago. Look at how beautiful this is. Absolutely insane. How about these eggplants? 4 weeks ago, planted out little seedlings, huge. Cucumbers, I planted out little seedlings 4 weeks ago. They are flowering, they are fruiting, they are trailing, they look incredible. How about this cabbage? Look at this cabbage 4 weeks ago. Little seedlings. I mean, they were a little bit bigger than little seedlings, but they were seedlings nonetheless. 4 weeks ago. Peppers, check it out. 4 weeks ago. No, mind you, 4 weeks ago was the beginning of June. The beginning of June, we planted out little seedlings. This tall, 4 weeks. Beans, look at this, 4 weeks. From seed, 4 weeks. Over here, tomatoes, look at this, 4 weeks. These are bush variety tomatoes, by the way. These are Ace 55, they're bush tomatoes. So they're not going to get super tall, so I don't have them caged. We're just gonna grow them up and let them bush, but still, 4 weeks ago. 4 weeks ago. These tomatoes right here, planted 2 weeks ago. Just 2, same time we planted those tomatoes over there. And you can see, we got melons, we got onions over there, 4 weeks ago. And people thought that that was late. By most standards, I would even consider that to be late. But what I've learned is that late is better than not at all. Because from this garden, you would think I planted it at a very normal time. You would think this garden was planted just after Mother's Day in May because of the stage that it's at. But once you put plants in good soil, give them good fertilizer, give them what they need, and the weather warms up and they're in nice full sun, time is so relative. Time is so relative that this garden almost didn't happen. I had a split second thought where I thought, man, I kind of don't want to embarrass myself. Maybe we just have the garden back at the house like we normally would. We'll give it another year for us to get established. I thought, no. I made a promise to all of you that we were gonna have our garden here to film all our videos here on the farm to keep everything central. I'm gonna plant it out. We're gonna have our garden here. You can't tell a difference. If you're being honest, can you tell a difference? Can you tell that we planted this garden out 3 weeks ago, 4 weeks ago? No, I can't. I don't think you can either. And this serves as a final example that for anyone that doubts, for anyone that sees someone trying to plant out their garden, I want you to be encouraging and give them pointers and tips. Sure, let them know about the risks, right? Let them know about the risks that are associated with planting out too late. Let them know those risks, but don't discourage them from doing that because they might have this exact same scenario where they didn't plant out a garden because they said, oh, people are gonna think it's too late, it's gonna fail, it's gonna be miserable. Turned out to be amazing. Just got to make sure you take care of what the plants need. And what I've learned is something that I've always known, but I learned firsthand this year. And that's that when we put our gardens in, it's not always going to be the ideal time. It's not always going to be the ideal weather. But having a garden and starting a garden is often better than not having a garden and not starting one. And really, once we get through that period of time, that period of imperfection, a lot of times, you really can't tell. If I had this garden versus another garden, you put the two together, I don't think you'd really be able to tell tremendously which garden was started later than another. I just don't, personally. And I've been doing this my whole life, and this was a huge wake-up call for me because I do always tell people about those inherent risks of starting a garden late, but I never really realized, because I usually start my garden on time, to be honest, on time. I never really realized just how fast a garden could catch up. When you give the plants what they need, you put them in an environment that they like and you treat them well and you love on them and give them what they need, I think time is all relative, especially if there's enough time in the growing season. And so this was a really exciting revelation for me. And it really kind of just taught me, again, to treat every situation with optimism and ultimately take every approach with try and see. Don't go into it with a definitive fact unless there is definitively not enough days to grow. If someone comes to me in August and says, I want to grow peppers from seed, definitively you do not have enough unless you grow them indoors. Definitively you do not have enough days to maturity. You just don't. But if it is even a remote possibility, give them the risks, give them the optimism, and say, hey, you got risks, but who knows? Try it. And so with that, I hope you guys enjoyed. I hope you all learned something new. I really do hope you guys are having a great garden. I am having probably one of my favorite gardening seasons ever. It just feels so good to be out here. And the plants, they couldn't look better. So I hope you guys are enjoying. Hope you guys are learning something new with these videos. And we'll catch you all on the next episode with more tutorials and tips. I wanted to get this one out there. So anyways, love you all so much. Grow bigger. Take care. Bye. Hey, thank you so much for watching today's video. I really appreciate it. If you enjoyed, consider clicking this one. You'll probably enjoy it just as much. I want to thank you for your viewership, because without it, this channel would not be as amazing as it is. Also, if you haven't subscribed, consider subscribing. It's free, and we upload videos every Monday, Wednesday, or Friday. We also have vegetable seeds, fertilizer, or tools. If you need any of those, consider visiting MIgardener.com. Links will be in the description box below. We've got you covered. And as always, we'll see you all in the garden. Take care.